Okay, we're here today with Dr. Meike Niedbal from Deutsche Bahn. And Dr. Niedbal can look back to an impressive career development. She's a former economics student, which in only a few years rose up to not one, but several leading positions at Deutsche Bahn. Dr. Niedbal, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. We are now at the end of our academic journey, and we were just wondering about the big question: how do you start a career? And we thought maybe you can tell us a bit about your journey from
okay
to leader.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction. I started my business career actually at university as well, because I did my PhD in Berlin at Humboldt University. And after 3 years, I moved to the consulting business, and I did all the consulting things, different projects, especially in the automotive industry. But then there was some time coming up when I thought, okay, after all this time, it's always a project on a concept level, and I really would like to go deeper into it, and I would really like to finish all my projects, because I'm really convinced that only when you did something in reality, you can do lots of concepts and visions, etc. But if you do not change something in reality, then actually it was probably not a successful project, unless you learned something else, and then it was a conscious decision not to do it anymore, of course. So I decided to go to Deutsche Bahn, and I started with the position of a project lead in corporate strategy. And from there, I moved here to Station and Service. Station and Service is the operator of more than 5,000 railway stations in Germany. And I'm really every morning I'm really impressed on how I can really change something in reality. And I think this is my good advice for everyone: to start a career, do what you really like, because it is so important to be convinced on what you do. And then you can grow, and you can learn, and you can start being better every day. But it's so important that you do something where you think you can make a difference. And this can be very different from your personality. And so I would never say to someone, okay, do this 2 years longer because it's good for your career. I would always tell you, okay, if you're convinced that this is not something that you want to follow on, then stop it and do something else. And then please find out what it is.
Okay.
So what is your vision for the future of the railway and of public transport in general?
Well, I'm really sure that after the period of Corona, which is, right now it's a difficult time, especially for public transport. But I'm really sure that public transport will be the key to change mobility, not only in Germany, but in Europe and worldwide. Why? Because if you see the trend on mobility, all the people are more mobile every year. So, well, we will see how this will go on after Corona. But under the assumption that everyone is more mobile every year, then you need very efficient modes of transport, because for all these many people, and with all the the major challenges from climate change, you need a solution that is efficient in the number, and also, of course, environmentally friendly. And this, from my opinion, can only be public transport. But normally public transport, of course, would not move you directly from your door at home to where you want to travel to. So we need more systems for the first and the last mile. And there has been so many different projects, so many different ideas about that. I think it is now the time really to invest into the first and the last mile. And I think also it does not have always to be completely, let's say, fancy and innovative. Look at, for example, the bike, the classical bike, which has a really good history right now in the trend. It goes up, the usage of cycling. So I think it depends on where you live. It depends, of course, on the distance you have to take, for example, to the next train station. It depends on so many different factors that we need flexible systems that are efficient as well, and also environmentally friendly, because I mean, of course, I do not think that the car will become will be over someday. I wouldn't say that, of course, but I think for all the long distances, you would not need it anymore. But what is maybe a major obstacle is, okay, if I have to go to the next train station, where do I put my car, etc. There, I think we can become much better on that. So it feels more a real journey, a customer journey, which is very fluent and not a real, okay, you have to struggle with every single point where you have to change the transport mode. So I think this is, I think this will be the key to do it.
You already touched upon it briefly, but we were wondering, what are the main challenges at the moment amidst the Corona crisis for, getting for the future goals? Where do you see the biggest challenges at the moment?
Yeah, I think public transport was and is on a good track to gain more customers and new customers. But I think, or it could be that coming from Corona, many people would say, okay, I've tried it, but now I really want to use my car because I feel more safe in the car. Although, also to say it very clearly, public transport is definitely not the factor for spreading Corona. We have not had any case where you would say, okay, that was a super spreading event on a train, for example. This did never happen. But some people feel uncomfortable with the current situation. And I think these could be some people where it could be very difficult to win them back into the system of public transport. And this will be, I guess, the challenge for us within the next 2 years to do that. Because, yeah, the mobility behavior is quite inflexible. You normally stick to the rules. You wake up and you do every morning. You do probably more or less the same. And unless a really big crisis like Corona is coming and is throwing all your normal habits away, you would not really like to change it. So you want to leave it as it is. And this is the challenge. We have how to say that we have to break up the normal mobility behaviors, so the habits that people have, but yeah, in a positive way, of course.
So if we now move on to get a little bit more specific, and particularly on something that you have quite a big influence on, which is stations and Deutsche Bahn stations. How do you see the rail station of the future? And the second part of the question is, and what transformations will rail infrastructure in general need to go through in order to achieve your vision of the future rail station?
The train stations of the future must differentiate. We have many large stations, like, for example, here Berlin Main Station, where a station like this must be really a central mobility hub, not only within the city of Berlin, but also within the whole region. And I explain what I mean by mobility hub, because you're wondering, okay, it is already a mobility hub, right? So, but then we have other segments and categories, and I think all these segments will have to differentiate more and more, because it will make a difference on if I have people traveling all day to their work, or people traveling once a month to a business trip to Frankfurt, for example. This will make a difference on what kind of needs they have, what kind of mobility for the first and last mile they would expect. And so we have to differentiate it, first of all. By mobility hub, I mean a main station in Berlin, for example. Of course, it's a central connection point. And today we have, of course, all the most important train lines here. We have a bus system, but I think we need more bike cycling. We really have to think about it. Also about the infrastructure for that, because today everything is focused on the car. Once you step out of the train station, you first of all see the taxi line. Yeah, and I think, of course, the taxi is important for example, for someone doing business and needs to get from A to B. But it's not maybe the most relevant for someone else who's doing his daily way to his working place. So we have to think about more building the train station according to the customer needs at that particular station. And then combine especially the non-motorized transport modes. Also walking. No one is thinking so much about, okay, what about all the people walking to the train station? It's not the most innovative thing, but you would not see all these walking paths, for example. And we have to think about how we will come up with a solution that we have the place just in front of the train station is limited. So how do we come up that all the transport modes at a train station like Berlin will come across, so that the modes do not cross all the time. So it's a well-organized thing to do it. Second thing, besides first and last mile mobility, is the question on the quality of staying within the station, meaning, okay, the more attractive the train station is, the more often I want to visit it. And normally it's not really a destination, it's more like a transit zone. But if you see, or if you think about the train station as a destination, this is where I want to come to, and this is where I want to spend time. And then maybe after 20 minutes, I walk to the S-Bahn, for example. Then this is something completely different, because we have public space in front of the buildings, and I think this is so important to do more with the public space to become a more livable city. So. And this is I think, one of the top priorities: make it more attractive with more services, with more things that you can do and buy at the train station for your daily life. And then on the other hand, to come to the station according to your customer needs, meaning first and last mile. So I think these will be very important things.
Can you reveal us some of these services that maybe are not there at the moment, but that could be? You know, what kind of spaces or services could those be, for instance?
I can give you 2 or 3 examples. For example, it's a service already existing in Hamburg. We call it the Hamburg box. This is something like a locker, and the locker is for everyone who wants to receive different kind of things, a parcel, something from the local retailer, etc. So it's a locker where you can put, or where someone else can put everything into what you can pick up at the time that suits you. So it's a thing of, it's an open system. This is really important because it's not only for one offer. For example, for the one cab service, it's open for everyone. And so we integrate, or we talk to many different retailers that can use it. Also, it's maybe cases from one customer puts in a key for someone else, and then the other person picks it up later on, 2 or 3 hours later. And this is something that we actually currently are doing in Hamburg at 20 train stations together with partners. And I think this is something that could be interesting because the last mile logistic is one of the most important miles, and also the one that is from an environmental side, the most critical one, because in the end, there's only one parcel traveling in a big truck, moving to one house, and for a long way. So this is normally the case. But if you have that volume, and if you concentrate it on one train station, then many people can come by, stop by at the time they're at the train station anyway, pick up all their stuff from that one box and bring it home. So, and then they do not have the challenge anymore that once they come home, they have different papers in their letterbox and see, okay, I have to pick this up, and I was not at home normally when I'm working in the office. This could be one service. Another one is we are working on co-working services, meaning that you spend time on the train station and have a really professional seat where you can work for some hours, for a day, for some weeks, and that you also for that that you're in the train station anyway, so you can work there, maybe preparing for an important presentation for a business traveler, or you have 1 hour in the evening, you do not know what to do. Okay, I can quickly finish my stuff for the day, and then I'm ready for the evening, for example. So these are services where we say, okay, it's not the mobility service, but the mobility brings you to the train station, and once you're there, you can test and you can use the service. So it makes it more attractive than if you had to travel 2 more miles for a co-working space, 2 more miles for a locker, etc. I think also interesting could be everything about bikes. For example, repair services. You put your bike at the train station, and a local repairer comes and picks it up with a code. You can do that in a digital way, picks it up with a code, and in the evening you pick up your bike and it's perfectly repaired. And so you save time because you do not have to bring it yourself. These are, I think, services that could make sense, I think.
A lot of the services that are being provided could be very useful, potentially, professionals, for instance, particularly with the last mile solutions and the co-working spaces. But we were just wondering, how do sort of we include, or how does Deutsche Bahn include other groups, like such as the elderly or the less privileged, people that are less inclined to digital tools, perhaps, or that's able to, I guess, pay Monatskarte. Yeah.
the services are not for free, of course, but these services should not be exclusive services, meaning, okay, they are premium service and costs or price is very high. No, this is nothing that we want to address, because I mean, we want to reach as many people as possible. So just to make that clear. Yeah, but of course, you said people that are not that that are not the digital natives, for example. Yeah, we try to do it as easy as it's possible, knowing that not every service is easy and possible at us, but we really look at it, okay, so that in the end there are only 2 or 3 clicks. So this is our approach from what we are doing right now, these services. In general, I think more attractive spaces around train stations, I think will address, for example, people living in that area. And I think this is open to everyone. And this is something I think is very important to make more out of the public spaces. I think they are valuable, especially in the cities, and they could be much more livable as they are right now. And I think for that, it's I took part in a conference and I was asked, okay, when do you think a place in front of a train station is a good one? And I said, it's a good one when I see as many different people as possible, because then you think, okay, you see young people, children, you see business people, you see elderly people. And once you have reached a mixture, then I think this is something that is valuable also for the society. So, and I would say, and this is, for example, project we are doing right now in Köln-Mülheim, where we opened up some furniture in front of the train station building, and with lots of green around it, and a playing corner for the children, and with information so you can sit there. And we are doing open air cinema as well. We want to even do some cooking class, and we want to bring the people in that area together at that space, at that place. And so this would be the way of how we think about the inclusive perspective.
I wanted to maybe switch slightly, because we're looking at Berlin and Brandenburg, so we're dealing with the city, but also with a lot of spaces which are still rural, which are next to the city, but they tend to be quite isolated, you know, like even if they're close to the city, they're still kind of in the Hinterland, to say so. So we're thinking about, you know, regions in Germany with this kind of infrastructural deficit, that where rail network in previous years has maybe been discontinued, or it hasn't been developed as much as in other places. Maybe broadly, what could be solutions for them, or for people that are living and maybe pendling, moving from these areas to their workplaces?
The vision of, okay, bring as many people as possible to Berlin is maybe not the right answer, or the right question, because I think you have the peak times, and within the peak times, all the trains are already, or before Corona, they were really overcrowded already. So of course you can increase the frequency of the trains heading to Berlin, and this is what the VBB is doing. So this is something which is really right thing to do, to bring a connection to maybe some regions that did not have that quality of service yet. But I think what we have learned from the Corona crisis is maybe not everyone has to travel to the office every day, every morning at the same time. So maybe there are also different or other visions where you could say, okay, maybe I stay home for 2 days maybe on a third day I go to train station, but I work in the co-working area at that local train station. But then, of course, I have other meetings. I have to meet my colleagues, and then I go to Berlin. So I think the flexibility of workplaces will be different in the future, and the variety will be larger as it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. On the other hand, not only focusing on the people working, I think in general it is important, especially concerning demographics, the elderly people that maybe are, for them it's different to first come up to the train station. Maybe we need more DRT services, demand responsive services, so that the little bus is coming to you when you need it, and it's not running every hour, although there are no passengers. And so I think we need more flexibility in a local system.
Your work obviously focuses on the whole of Germany and includes transnational connections as well. We were just wondering, what is the position of Berlin-Brandenburg in the grand scheme of Germany?
Yeah, we're kind of trying to outline how will Berlin-Brandenburg develop, and we know that there are certain Bahnhöfe which are, maybe transformed as the hubs to, I don't know, Frankfurt. It's the hub to go to France, for instance, right, to Belgium or the States. So wondering, is that maybe the case of Berlin-Brandenburg, or is maybe Berlin or Brandenburg maybe a kind of a play field or a test site for some innovations?
Of course, Berlin, as the capital of Germany, of course, has always been in the focus. And for example, the S-Bahn system here in Berlin is the largest one we have in whole Germany. So of course, Berlin has always been of quite a high importance. What I think has changed a little bit is that also Brandenburg is moving further, that there are regions that become maybe more, also from an economical perspective, more interesting. And for example, the case of Tesla has maybe proved it, that it is an attractive area to invest, and not to invest in Berlin, where you have everything is already somehow overcrowded, but that you invest in an area where you have well-educated people, where you have the potential still to do better. And I think this is something that has changed. And so far, I think we as Deutsche Bahn, we will always invest into Berlin as well as in Brandenburg. So, and take, for example, Berlin-Munich. It has made Berlin and Munich more attractive, but also all the cities in between, like Leipzig, Erfurt, etc. They are becoming more and more interesting. So it is not only important that you can do the distance Berlin-Munich in less than 4 hours. It is maybe as important as you can maybe move to Erfurt and work in Munich. So these are new things to think about. And also Berlin-Hamburg, for example, is also a good example. So I think it's not only the long distance things, it's more like the regional things, the cities in between, that would become more important also by the so-called Deutschlandtakt, which you probably know. And so it's the medium-sized cities will become more important. And so I think this is good news also for Brandenburg.
So now if we start to think about potential of mobility in terms of governance, how how could the political landscape transform to facilitate future goals? What would be, from your perspective, an ideal constellation?
First of all, to become faster. Berlin has always had lots of potential, but maybe it's not yet realized so much. I think it's important to understand the urgency of problems to be solved. And also as for example, Corona revealed, now the bike lanes are possible on a temporary way, I know, but why wasn't it possible before? So thinking about, okay, what can we learn from these developments? How will it become faster? And I think this is one of the most important things. And then also to share a vision on where we want to move to. Okay, what is the best mobility vision we have for the city of Berlin? And so is it, I don't know, is it focus on public transport? Is it the mixture? Is it focus on first, last mile? So what is what are our hypotheses about how the city of Berlin, and especially the people in Berlin, will have the most livable city? And I think this could be more of a discussion going on. I think it's more a controversial discussion, and I think must be more kind of more creative discussion on and also on how do we want to live in the future.
The transport, or let's say the business portfolio of Deutsche Bahn, it kind of extends quite far from the railway. I mean, you have passenger railway, you have freight transport, but you also do have other types of services. I think probably one of the latest is I think Clever Shuttle, which is also built up in cooperation with you. Does this kind of strategy of diversifying, maybe, let's say so, or of offering intermodal transport services or of mobility as a service, does the strategy also play a role in this kind of future vision?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, it's the intermodal services is a different word for what I meant with the first and last mile solutions. Because if you want to plan your travel trip, then of course you are interested not only in beginning your travel in the train station, but you have to move to it. So it's a question of how do I come there? And so this is the intermodal thing I try to explain, which is from my point of view is the key for it. And in terms of importance, I would say first last mile maybe in some areas could be even more important than the travel trip by train itself, because the some distances are already kind of attractive, I would say. Yeah, so Berlin, Munich in less than 4 hours. But okay, and not so many people live in a 3-minute walk to Berlin main station. So you have to come here, and in the most efficient and fastest way that is possible. So, and I think this will be the key for that. So, and this is why we moved there, and this is why we are investing into it. This is why we are kind of diversified. And I think if you say, okay, Deutsche Bahn should really concentrate only on the train operations, I would say then we will never ever offer an attractive service to our customers. Mm-hmm. And so we will not win for the trains. This will not be possible then. Then it's easier for someone just to take a car. So cooperation, investing, everything is possible.
is Deutsche Bahn, or how is Deutsche Bahn working with other mobility providers to improve efficiency for its passengers?
It's not only a question of one mode. It's I take the train and that's it. It's a question of all the different modes in between as well. And for example, if you want to go to, or if you come to Berlin main station, would also move to our parking place here, and then you can rent a rental car, for example. You can also have all the different car sharing services around the main station, etc. So and on a cooperation level, if you buy a ticket, then of course you can also buy your rental car, for example. But I think in the way of making it really easy to the customer, it should be more obvious for the customer, okay, what is it what you need right now, and where is it? Where do I have to move to? This could be much easier. So it should not be a question for the experts to find out, but to find out for as many people as possible. And then it makes click, and it's really completely easy. So, and I think these are the steps we have to take together with, for example, the automotive industry, really to do it. Also, the question of electric car sharing, for example. Okay, once you take the train, you have the Bahn card. Then it is green. It's environmentally friendly. It's CO2 free, but then if you use the car, okay, it's maybe not so attractive anymore. So it's also a question of making the whole customer journey more environmentally friendly. And this is also for us, of course, something that we have to work on and to prepare, for example, maybe to provide the infrastructure, to maybe provide the spaces, so that this is possible.
When you look at the mobility field, you've been in contact with many different stakeholders, companies, look a bit company. How is this? Can you maybe tell us a bit something how you see this subject of inclusion and diversity? Like, I'm not asking only of Deutsche Bahn, but like of what you observe in the whole mobility field. Do you think we're, let's say, on a good way there to include people from all sorts of backgrounds and provide everyone, regardless of their, let's say, gender, sexual orientation, whatever, a fair chance?
Well, I think there are two sides, right? Also I start with the customer side. I think if there is one transport mode that is affordable, that is open to everyone, I would really definitely say it's public transport. Because, yeah, it is an efficient way, and in Germany we do not have areas how to get there. You buy a ticket, you are in there. Yeah, you even do not need a reservation. So I think from that perspective, I think we are quite okay, also in terms to other countries. If I look at Deutsche Bahn as a company, I would, say definitely we have to get more diverse. Although we have 2 women in our board, and I think that's a very good development. I would say, okay, the board, of course, does not speak for the whole company. I think there are different parts in the company where we could definitely become more diverse, not only in the question of male, female, but also in terms of age and terms of your educational background. I think this is very important as well, in terms of where you're coming from, etc. So I think it's on all these different layers, we really have to work on it. But I think we are on a good way to do it. So we have quite a lot of campaigns to make it clearer to everyone that diversity is not only something we have to do, but this is where we can gain potential out of it. I think, or my perspective is, the more diverse a team is, the better the ideas are that are coming from the team. Because I think creativity is not a question of one single person in the team. It's more the combination of different perspectives that will give you more ideas out of the whole team, and then the whole team is creative. This is more important than to have 2 or 3 people and say, okay, please be creative. This is your task, and everyone else, please stop it. So I think it's a really potential in there. Yeah. And the more examples we have, the more diverse teams we have, then everyone else will see, okay, that team is moving better ahead than the other team. Could be a question of diversity. So yeah, could be faster as everything else as well. But I think we are on a good track.
Okay, maybe we can just squeeze in just a final question for you.
Yeah.
What, and it's kind of a projection towards the future and how the future is going to be affected by various aspects. So what would you identify as the drivers of change in the mobility sector, which will have the greatest impact on future travel?
One of the key questions will be really climate change, because I think the more, and I think it is getting out of our focus right now, which I do not understand. I think if we really do not work hard on it, then in only a few days we only talk about all the impacts from the climate change, and we cannot do anything against it anymore. So then we are really in a strong defensive way and saying, okay, how can we, I don't know, survive in these challenges? So I think this is one of the key messages, that mobility, logistics, and climate change go hand in hand. And if we really, because Corona at least taught us that it is possible to change your behavior from one day to the other. So no one can tell anybody again, okay, I cannot change my mobility behavior. It's not possible. I have to use my car over and over again. I have to go on vacation with my car, and etc. I have to do all these crazy airplane trips over the weekend. I have to do it. No one can tell me that this is really the case, because we have proved so many months now that it is possible. It is possible. So the key question is, how fast do we forget about it? How fast do we think that once we have some solution against Corona, how fast do we forget that there was a time where everything was possible to change, everything we thought is not possible to change. So yeah, and on the other side, everything else depends on that. So the question of how much is invested into, for example, public transport, and also in different flexible new transport modes of the future. How much do we invest into it? How ambitious we are, and then I think it's also a question of how do we talk about it. If you only talk in that kind of really German way, I would say, about discussing, okay, yeah, there will be a new train track from A to B. So many people against it. Okay, we do it in a different way. I mean, we should talk about, okay, what is the overall goal of it, and what is the advantage for everyone living there. I think it could be good at some point of time to have more of a storytelling in it. So that climate change also, for example, is not an abstract thing. And also climate change does not mean that everything else will be worse than before. And it means that I have to, that I have to reduce something, but that I also am possible to win something. Yeah, like more quality of life, for example. Yeah. So air pollution, for example, got down during the Corona crisis. So all these things are possible. So we should think about these positive things and really tell everybody about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's a mixture of having a vision and then really be ambitious about really do what is necessary to do about it.
Great. I think that's a beautiful Schlusswort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the insightful interview.
We'd like to invite you to follow our progress on bb2040.de. There's lots of discussions, lots of work, lots of visions on there. So feel free to take a look and follow.